Well, hey there. Happy Monday. Depending upon where you live in the country, you may be currently in the throes of prepping for back to school. Others of you may still have quite a few weeks to go. We personally, at the time that I'm doing this video, we are 2 weeks out from school starting back. And today I want to share with you two tips that are incredibly helpful for you as you transition out of summer mode into the back to school mode that can help that transition be a little less stressful. My name is Megan Summerall. I am a time management and planning expert for women, and I'm on a mission to bring work-life harmony into homes all over the world. Now, we have a big transition in our household this year because our daughter is heading off to her first year of high school in 2 weeks. And I will tell you, one of the things I love about summer schedule is we all get to sleep in a little bit later. Things are a little bit more flexible. We keep routines in place, but we give ourselves the flexibility of deciding like when we might want to do it, right? We can go with the flow a little bit easier. Now, I also know a lot of you can probably relate. Let me know in the comments if you do. When you get to the end of summer break, which as I said, we're rolling into the last 2 weeks, I start to crave a little bit more structure again, and I start to yearn for that back to school. But that first week or two, when you are off of summer break and you are back into school, oh my goodness, it can be a lot and it can be a little stressful. It can cause some anxiety. Kids can get a little grumpy, hypothetically speaking, right? We've never experienced that in our home. So I want to share with you two things that have really helped me in the past when we transitioned from summer schedule to back to school that I really want you to consider. First and foremost, whatever time you are going back to school, all right, so our back to school date is August 19th. I strongly encourage you, as much as possible, to block your calendar the weekend before and the first weekend of school. Now, what do I mean by block your calendar? It is so tempting to want to squeeze in one last weekend of summer fun, right? Right before school starts. So like for us, that would be, 17th and 18th. Okay, what big thing can we do? And then you roll back home on the 18th, and then you're expecting your kids to wake up really early in the morning the very next day and launch back into school. I is as tempting as it is, I strongly encourage you that weekend before not to try and squeeze in one last trip or one last vacation. I'm not saying you sit around and do nothing, but we will be at home. We're actually going to use that, and we've started it already, where we're making sure wake up is at a little bit more of a reasonable hour, so that especially if you have teens, they're not going from sleeping in till 10 in the morning to suddenly you're waking them up at 6 a.m., right? And then that first weekend of when they've had that first week of school, same thing. That is not the weekend to plan some huge trip or activity. Your kids are going to be tired. You're going to be tired. It's a big schedule change. And to just pad that weekend with having as little on your calendar as possible is going to help with the rest that everybody needs. And also, there's usually stuff that pops up that first week of school that might require you to be running some errands, right? The school supplies no one mentioned that you needed that now you're realizing you do, all that kind of stuff. So that is tip number one. Really try and protect your calendar the weekend before school starts and the first weekend of school, all right, to give you and your children that space to mentally prepare and then also to kind of rest and recover from that first week of school. Now, the second tip that I want to share with you is one that you're going to implement right when back to school starts. And what I do is I just keep a little pad of paper in our kitchen, because a lot of our, getting ready for school and coming home from school happens in the kitchen. And I make notes of what went well and what didn't every day. So, for example, last year, I can very clearly remember actually just in January when we were transitioning to a new school, the first morning, things were really wonky in terms of the timing that we thought we needed for breakfast prep and all of that. So I actually, that first morning, as we're heading out the door, wrote down on the scratch piece of paper, like, we did not have enough time this morning. And what you want to do is kind of make notes to yourself that whole first week of what went well and what didn't. And then, depending upon the age of your kids, and I encourage you, involve them as early as possible. At the end of that first week of back to school, sit down and have a conversation with them of what they thought went well and what didn't. Now, notice I say wait till the week is over. In the heat of the moment is, and again, I still struggle with this myself. The heat of the moment, if things are not going well, is not the time to bring it up, but to give everyone a chance to reflect. So since our school is starting on a Monday and I've protected that first weekend, I know on that following Sunday morning is going to be the time for us as a family to sit down and say, hey, what worked, what didn't last week? Is there anything that we want to change up in terms of how we are prepping and getting out the door in the morning, things that might be needing to happen in the evening, homework schedules, etc. And involve your kids. And when you have those notes that you're keeping track of each day, it's going to help you with that conversation. Because sometimes I don't even remember necessarily what I did 30 minutes ago, let alone 4 days ago. So if you're jotting down for yourself what's working well and what's not from a schedule perspective, it's really going to help you guys have that conversation over the weekend so that you can decide what changes you might want to implement in the second week. And for us, it usually takes 2 full weeks of testing and tweaking what that morning routine is going to be like getting out the door for school and what the kind of come home from school routine looks like until we land on one that's working for everyone. So don't expect to nail it right out of the gate and really go into it with the idea of, hey, I think, realistically, it's probably going to take us a couple weeks to settle into a system, a routine that's working for everyone. Now, if you're watching this video and you have been through my top program, time management, organization, and productivity, I would strongly encourage you on the second week back to school, not the first one, but the second week back to school, to run a personal time audit for yourself so that you can start to see what changes you might need to make inside of your own weekly planning process. So I hope that this has been helpful. Again, recap. Protect those 2 weekends, the one before school and that first weekend of school. Do not overbook yourself or your children. Give them the time to mentally prepare, recover, etc. And then second, that first whole week of school, be making notes of what's working well and what's not with kind of your morning, afternoon, and evening routines. And then sit down as a family at the end of that first week and really review it and involve everyone to say, what might we need to change up to make this work better for everyone? So I hope you are enjoying your last little bit of summer break as we roll into our back to school season.